Yeah. Good morning. I'm Steve Blair. This is The Rock. Welcome to your show and welcome to another program here on Love FM. This is the only live talk show of its kind on radio in Jamaica on The Rock. We discuss all sides of a topical issue that seems to have the church, its congregants, and society as a whole thinking about the truths found in the Bible, causing believers and unbelievers to consider and or reconsider the things they've heard, believed, or read, causing churches to open or restart discussions on issues very often glossed over, ignored, or misunderstood. We take on various biblical based and influenced issues and do our best to show Christians how we can advance through the Word of God. We are real here. And sometimes we even rock the boat, but at the end of the day, we use the Bible and constantly ask the question, what does the Bible say? This is a discussion, it's not a debate. It's a discussion where all views contend, but they may not stand the what does the Bible say test. A special welcome to our listeners on Love 101.o org, where we stream live, and welcome to those joining us via the Love 101 FM app, downloaded from the Google Play Store or the Apple Store. We're now also on Facebook and YouTube Live. So, welcome to those of you who join us as always, and thank you for joining us. Well, Jamaica. Jamaica is a land full of folklore, magic, spirituality, and a rich culture of traditions, customs, and rituals. Many of them are religious in origin, but as believers of the Bible, why do some of us indulge in these traditions and rituals? Is it okay to communicate with ghosts, wish on a star, or leave food in your plate? What about knocking on wood? What does the Bible say about all that? Rituals, superstitions, duppy stories, and more. That's our topic today on The Rock. Of course, I'll talk about that and more in just a minute, but I've got to give you a piece of my mind, as always, some things to think about. We celebrated Emancipation Day yesterday, and of course, there's some things that we want to discuss about emancipation. Emancipation certainly means freedom, moving on from bondage. But there's several things that we've seen taking place over Jamaica in Jamaica over the years, and especially during the pandemic. Well, the news reports, especially as we see in the Observer, indicates that the pandemic has resulted in significant domestic violence incidences and reports. Now, we're celebrating freedom. We're celebrating independence this weekend. But in the midst of all of this celebration, we still have so much taking place that reminds us of our violent past, which continues to lead into our present and also our future. Reports are being made that there are women who are being abused greatly across the Caribbean, not just women, children. And with these reports coming in from the World Health Organization, it gives me more of a reason to celebrate the speech by our Prime Minister yesterday. For some reason, I have some deep respect for this man. Whenever he opens his mouth, it just seems to me that he should be preaching the gospel. His message at New Year's talked about the issues facing Jamaicans. His message for emancipation, he says in his emancipation message that we have been set free. Here's what he says. Yesterday, we celebrate as our forebears did the day of full freedom. What were we celebrating? Look at the history and the slaves being bound in chains, packed in one another, being given 500 lashes, being sentenced to death. Certainly something to celebrate for emancipation. But have we really been emancipated? Are we doing what our forebears did to us or what the plantation owners did to us? Are we going through the same things as before? Well, the Prime Minister says we give thanks for their sacrifice. We reflect on the dehumanizing system that sought to treat another human being as property, to deny them of any rights, even over their own body and reproductive decisions, and to control them by inflicting mental and physical pain through lashing and other forms of punishment, which violated their physical and spiritual being. It sounds like what I'm seeing happening around me today, where people are being treated as property, women and children especially, where people are being denied their rights, even over their own body and their reproductive decisions, and to control them by inflicting mental and physical pain. Now, as I read this, I can see that there may be some political overtones because he does mention that people are being denied their right over reproductive decisions. Mr. Prime Minister, are you sending us another message? I don't know, but the argument I'm bringing today is that as we celebrate freedom, we're still in the position where people are being treated as property, people are still being abused. Violence against our neighbor is the order of the day. Murder is something we look towards the news every day to see what is taking place. I pray, I wish we could have a day free of murder. But it's not just murder, it's the way we discipline our children, leaving belt marks and buckle marks on their backs and hitting them in their heads and taking them to the point of murder. Certainly, Jamaica, we must awaken to where we are. Violence, emancipate us. Emancipate us. It can only be an emancipation of self. Yes, freedom comes and is given to us, but we don't have the freedom to abuse each other. We don't have the freedom to abuse our environment. We don't have the freedom to abuse our children and our spouses and our people. Mr. Prime Minister, I almost gave you a full A for this message until I saw the reproductive argument that people must have their right to choose. Well, as a church, we still take a stand. And we take that stand against that right to choose, that right to take the life of a child in the womb. We take that stand today, Mr. Prime Minister. I agree with you on so much. I stand with you on so much. But I remind our country, we must continue to take a stand. That stand for the unborn child. Sometimes I wonder as I continue my rant and rave today about Jamaica and the need for us to take from all over the world to get our essence of freedom. We celebrate our national heroes. We celebrate those who fought for our freedom, and we celebrate those who fought for our blackness as a people. Marcus Garvey, I've been taking the time to read his quotes, his messages, and I often wonder why these messages are not given to our children in primary school and high school, where he says the black skin is not a badge of shame, but rather a glorious symbol of national greatness. That's why we're celebrating with Thompson era today. That's why we're celebrating with our Jamaican athletes around Tokyo in the Olympics, because blackness is not a badge of shame for us. It's a symbol of national greatness. But Marcus Garvey also said this: a people without the knowledge of their past history, origin, and culture is like a tree without roots. Jamaica awakened to our past, awakened to the pain of the past. Young men walking out of their homes with a gun and a knife today, preparing to rob somebody of their property, preparing to take the life of someone else. That is our past. That is the past history of pain and shame and abuse. It's a culture with an origin of violence, but it's like a tree without roots. It is the same Garvey who said to us as Jamaicans, if you have no confidence in self, you're twice defeated in the race of life. So he says, up you mighty race, accomplish what you will. Ah, up you mighty race. Elaine, Elaine Thompson Hero, I know it must have been difficult for her. After her 100 victory, she said some people called her insane. Some people talked about her. And no doubt today she's celebrating. She's celebrating being the second fastest woman of all time in the 100 and the 200. Many people say that the person who is recognized as the fastest of all time, Flo Joe, did it illegally, but we believe that Elaine has opted and said, "Up, you mighty race." Certainly, we stand with Shelley. We thank Shelley for what she's done over the years, but now it's the era of Elaine Thompson. It can be the era of our children going forward into 2021 and 22. It can be the era as we move forward to 2030 with Vision 2030, a country that talks the talk but does not walk the walk. Vision 2030 demands your help today. Can we all just get along? Can we all work together to make something happen for the future? Well, my last story of the day. The schools open in just a few weeks. One teacher writes in the paper, she says that it's a good thing that the school's going to open because children will get a reprieve from the abuse in their homes. They've been home for a year, many of them, being called names, being told that they're lazy, being told that they'll never come to anything, being told that they remind someone of their no good mother or father. And now they're going back to school to be told to be someone, to work hard, to be someone great. And I'm saying that abuse that they've endured for the last 18 months or thereabouts is coming to an end. I'm sorry for the teachers because they're going back to school to students who perhaps forget the art of studying and reading because their minds have been on surviving. Jamaican teachers, I pray your strength as we go into the new school year. That's what I've got to say today. Jamaica, can I go back to Marcus Garvey as I end my talk? He says these words: I have no desire to take all black people back to Africa. There are blacks who are no good here and will likewise be no good over there. That's my rant and rave. The program today on Love 101. What are we doing when we visit the Obia man? Participate in Kumina, use questionable lotions and potions, and tell duppy stories. Some believe that duppy stories are just fairy tales with a seeming connection to spirits and the underworld. Should they still be told? What about revivalism? What does the Bible say? Rituals, superstitions, and duppy stories. That's our topic today. Post all your comments on this topic on our Facebook Live, The Rock Broadcast, or send a WhatsApp message or voice note to 876-997-3125 using the hashtag The Rock. Voice notes must be no more than 30 seconds. And of course, turn your radio down so we don't hear myself and others in the background. We just want to hear what you have to say. We'll share them throughout the program, and we hope to hear you when you call in because we want to hear some of your stories. And I get dumpy story calls every week. Our guests today, Dr. Donald Stewart and Dr. Amina Blackwood Meeks. Are you ready to hear what they have to say? Are you a dumpy storytelling, ritual keeping, superstitious Christian? Stick and stay. This is The Rock. We'll be right back.
Here is a reminder from Love 101, the family station, as we face the COVID-19 pandemic. Masks are effective only when used in combination with frequent hand cleaning with soap and water or alcohol-based solutions. Wear a mask that is lined with 2 or more layers. When taking it off, ensure you dispose of it properly. I'm Nigel Wilkinson from Love 101, reminding you to protect yourself while protecting others. Stay safe and keep it locked on Love 101, the family station.
Clear Sound Production Services in association with Kevin Downswell Ministries presents 658 Fest. Thank you. With Kevin Downswell, Rhoda Isabella, Rondell Positive, Chosen, Petra K, and Ali McNabb. Tickets 3,000, VIP 6,000 at spuropen.com/658fest. Saturday, August 7, 3 to 7 p.m. Police Officers Club, 34 Hope Road. COVID protocols will be observed. An attitude of gratitude. 658 Fest. Thank you. JUTC available to downtown Spanish Town and Portmore after the show. Here's why you can't afford to miss the Morning Watch.
I love listening to the Morning Watch because topics are discussed and issues are highlighted that are of major importance, which in turn edify me.
The Morning Watch, Tuesdays, Wednesdays, and Thursdays.
I like listening to the Morning Watch. I find it very informative. I find it very interesting. The topics that are covered are very, very wide.
The Morning Watch, thought-provoking, insightful, current. Listen for the probing questions with attorney at law Stokely Marshall and the in-depth discussion with Reverend Dr. Dallin Toussaint. The Morning Watch, Tuesdays, Wednesdays, and Thursdays. The Morning Watch is on the family station Love 101. Every first and last Tuesday, the Morning Watch is brought to you by Home and Things, your construction finishes superstore.
I've got love in my heart and I'm feeling.
St. James is your week in our Island Summer campaign so this Tuesday. Inside Testimony Tuesday, live 1 to 5, August 3. Stick around for island flavored music and inspirational stories. 2 o'clock, join us for Prayer Blast. At 2:15, Inside the Evidence, we hear a series of testimonies from Marsha Ingram. From abuse and suicidal tendencies to battling numerous health conditions, now healed and restored. Then at 3 p.m., we go beyond the pulpit of Pastor Bernard Salmon, Dean of City Bible College, Assistant National Overseer, and Pastor of the Rambler Pond Apostolic Church in St. James. All this and more will come alive on the family station of 101.
Oh my gosh, guess what? We're at the next stop of the Isle of Summer tour, St. James.
Welcome back. I'm Good morning. Yes. Welcome back to The Rock. I'm your host, Pastor Steve Blair, and you're tuned in to the show that's going to talk the things. Yes, we're going to have a look at some very big Jamaican things today and see what they do to us. Well, today in The Rock, rituals, superstitions, duppy stories. What does the Bible say about luck, the evil eye, black cats, walking on the ladders, crossing fingers, knocking on wood and stepping on cracks in concrete? Never heard about that one before. What's the real deal with Friday the 13th, chain letters, and throwing salt over your shoulder? How should Christians respond to these things? Are they just harmless tales and sayings and things that we do? Are the stories behind them just that, stories, and should not be taken seriously? Again, I ask, are you a duppy storytelling, ritual-keeping, superstitious Christian? What's your take on all of this? And what does the Bible say? Post all your comments on this topic on our Facebook Live, The Rock Broadcast, or send us a WhatsApp message or voice note to 876-997-3125 using the hashtag The Rock. Well, give your voice notes about 30 seconds. On The Rock today, Dr. Donald Stewart and Dr. Amina Blackwood Meeks. Dr. Amina is dedicated to the use of the oral arts for building core values that contributes to the development of human beings and places them at the center of national economic objectives. With a PhD in cultural studies, she's a college orator at the Edna Manley College, but above all, she is an accomplished storyteller, writer, author, director, performer, and custodian of the oral tradition. She has won awards through various endeavors. Dr. Meeks is an expert in African and Caribbean oral traditions and traditional stories. Blackwood Meeks has successfully petitioned the GG into proclaiming November 20 as National Storytelling Day and Jamaica Day for schools. She's an inductee in the Caribbean Hall of Fame. Well, Dr. Carl Aldington Stewart is a missionary in Zambia serving with Operation Mobilization since 2015. He was a math and physics teacher at Arden High School, pastor for 29 years with a Covenant Community, family of churches, Bible school teacher, Christian educator, Christian camps counselor, and administrator. He's also the author of 23 published books. He's been in the deliverance ministry since 1986. A graduate of JOBI, CAST, UE, CGST, CTS, CLU, TG, SAT, and Haggai Institute. He's married to Andrea and has 3 grown daughters. Welcome, my guests, Dr. Amina Blackwood Meeks and Dr. Donald Stewart. Welcome to the show again. Very interesting topic today, folks. And Dr. Meeks,
Thank
nice
you
to
very
meet you.
much.
Nice to be on the program.
Morning.
Good morning.
Good morning, everyone. I hope you
Good
can hear
morning.
me.
Thank you.
I'm
Can
not
hear you
hearing
loud and
very
clear.
clearly, but good morning.
Yes. Dr. Meeks, let me start with you. The culture of Jamaica is so rich and takes in from so many places. And there's so many things that we celebrate and so many things we do. As reading my script sent to me by a producer, and I'm talking about crossing fingers, throwing salt over my back, knocking on wood. All these things that we've heard of and thought of and have done. Tell us about our culture and the rituals and traditions that we're involved in.
I'm
Okay.
intrigued by the topic, and I'm
Yes.
intrigued by the first word. Can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear
Yes.
you.
And I'm intrigued by the first word in the topic. I'm intrigued by the first word, because one of the
Rituals.
first things to ourselves is what is a ritual. Secondly, secondly, we need to ask ourselves, whose rituals are we talking about? Ritual is really a neutral word, and it has no meaning except when it is used in a given context. So every single individual has a personal ritual. The way you put on your pants, you put in your left foot first, right foot. The way you get out of bed, into bed, the way you brush your teeth, how you. So all have personal rituals, and we don't ascribe anything negative to those personal rituals. As a nation, as a society, we have national rituals. We're going through one of them now, which we have dubbed Emancipendence, which is the celebration of our emancipation and our independence. So there are all kinds of rituals. What religion we belong to, of when we worship and when and so for some of us we go on a Saturday, for some of us we go on a Sunday, some of us go to the church, some go to the temple, and so on and so on and so forth. So ritual is a neutral word that has absolutely no connotations of negativity or positivity except that which we choose to assume.
Okay. So we have the rituals, we have the traditions, we have the stories. You talk about storytelling. And we've taken a lot of these things that we believe. Let me talk to Dr. Donald Stewart here to give his opening. Dr. Stewart, there's superstitions and rituals that we've engaged in over time. Some that we've done because we've been told, well, cross your fingers, or what side of the bed did you get upon, and how it affects your day, and other things like stepping on cracks in concrete. What do you have to say for the program today as we get going?
Okay, Steve, I'm not hearing you clearly, but I suspect you're asking my comment at
Yes.
the initial stages. And so I would agree very much with what Dr. Blackwood Beeks has said, that rituals are really neutral things, and we all practice rituals. But in the context in which the topic appears, we're talking here about rituals as they relate to spiritual activity, as they relate to what we could call African retention. And that's how I understand the context here. So when I use the word ritual, hereafter, I'm using it within that context. And therefore, there are possible positives and possible negatives when we understand it in that way. I would just also say that as a human being, and especially as a Jamaican, born and bred in Jamaica, I am familiar with many of the rituals that are associated with especially our African roots or African heritage. And I'm also, right now, I'm living in Africa. I've been here for the past 5 years in Zambia, and I see a lot of that here as well. So I'm accustomed to seeing these, and we need to evaluate the spiritual rituals against the Bible to see if there is good, if there's bad. And that's the framework from which I come.
Well, that's the opening for this program, where we understand rituals, traditions, and all of these superstitious things. We're going to be discussing more about them when we come back after the break for the news.
With your mid-morning news update, written and produced in association with Jamaica's first digital media house, My Jamaica Today, only 3 clicks away, and presented by Love 101 FM, the family station. Now the news. Jamaican athlete makes history in Tokyo. Elaine Thompson-Herah became the first woman in Olympic history to win the sprint double 100-meter and 200-meter in 2 games. She won gold this morning, Jamaica time, in the 200 meters, in a time of 21.53 seconds to defend the title she won in Brazil 5 years ago. Thompson-Herah's second goal means Jamaica's medal tally at the Olympics now moves up to 5. NCDs must be seen as an economic problem. Minister of Health and Wellness, Dr. Christopher Tufton, says the crisis of non-communicable disease, NCDs, must be seen as an economic problem and a challenge for development more broadly. He has noted that estimates show that economic impact of NCDs in Jamaica will lead to a lost output of approximately $17 billion over the next 15 years. Dr. Tufton was speaking at the ministry's NCD program review conference held recently in Montego Bay, where he highlighted the need to urgently address these chronic diseases. He added that tackling NCDs is even more imperative given the impact of the coronavirus on the health outcomes of people with these conditions. Haitians land in Portland. 4 Haitian males have landed in Buff Bay, Portland. Reports are that they arrived on a boat in Spring Gardens shortly before 5 o'clock this morning and are now awaiting a medical examination by health authorities in Portland. The police say that they have been on high alert since the assassination of Haiti's President Jovenel Moïse on May 7, and have been monitoring the Portland coastline since then. Reminder to school administrators. Minister of Education Favour Williams has reminded school administrators that no child should be denied the right to an education if school fee payments are not made. In a statement today, she says, while stakeholders may, if they choose, make voluntary contributions to support their children's education, schools should not force parents to pay fees for services that the ministry has already provided and has committed to providing. UK scraps amber watch list for COVID travel. A proposal to create an amber watch list of countries at risk of moving to red in the travel system has been abandoned by the UK. According to a BBC report, no new categories would now be added. The UK government had been considering the idea of a new level in the government's traffic light system for overseas travel ahead of the next review this week. And finally, on a sporting note, Jamaica's national champion Ronald Levy, Damian Thomas, and Hansel Parchment have made it through to the first round of the 110-meter hurdles at the Tokyo Olympic Games today. They qualified to the semifinals automatically by finishing in the top 4 of their heats. Levy won in the first race, clocking 13.17 seconds. Parchment was second in his heat at 13.23 seconds, beaten by gold medal favorite Grant Holloway of the United States, who ran 13.02 seconds. And those are the stories on the watch list in your mid-morning news update, written and produced in association with Jamaica's first digital media house, My Jamaica Today, only 3 clicks away, and presented by Love 101 FM, the family station. I'm Derval Graham, thanking you for listening. Do have a safe and productive day.
Sound Production Services in association with Kevin Downswell Ministries present 658 Fest. Thank you. With Kevin Downswell, Rhoda Isabella, Rondell Positive, Chosen, Petra K, and Ali McNabb. Tickets 3,000, VIP 6,000 at spuropen.com/658fest. Saturday, August 7, 3 to 7 p.m. Police Officers Club, 34 Hope Road. COVID protocols will be observed. An attitude of gratitude. 658 Fest. Thank you. JUTC available to downtown Spanish Town and Portmore after the show.
I've got love in my heart and I'm feeling
St. James is your week in our I Love Summer campaigns of this Tuesday. Inside Testimony Tuesday, live 1 to 5, August 3. Stick around for island-flavored music and inspirational stories. 2 o'clock, John's for Prayer Blast. At 2:15, inside the evidence, we hear a series of testimonies from Marsha Ingram. From abuse and suicidal tendencies to battling numerous health conditions, now healed and restored. Then at 3 p.m., we go beyond the pulpit of Pastor Bernard Salmon, Dean of City Bible College, Assistant National Overseer, and Pastor of the Rambler Pond Apostolic Church in St. James. All this and more will come alive on the family station, Love 101.
Every weekday on Love 101, we give you a time to celebrate your family and friends inside Celebration Club. Call in and send birthday, anniversary, other special day greetings, or just heal up your friends just because. It's Celebration Club, and every first and last Tuesday, it's brought to you by Fontana Pharmacy. Fontana Pharmacy, so good inside. It's a Celebration Club, celebrating families and friends. That's the way love goes. Every weekday at 3:45 on the family station, Love 101.
The Ministry of Health and Wellness is now inviting all persons 18 years and older to make an appointment for COVID-19 vaccination. Appointments can be made by calling 888-1-LOVE. That's 888-663-5683. You can also book online at www.moh.gov.jm. You may ask a relative, friend, or healthcare provider to assist with completing the application. Persons who are due their second COVID-19 vaccine are also invited to make their appointments. On the day of the appointment, individuals should take a government-issued ID, TRN, or letter from a justice of the peace. Persons who have a vaccination appointment during the curfew hours will be granted an exemption to complete their vaccination process and return home. Get vaccinated. Get back to life. This was an important message from the Ministry of Health and Wellness.
Welcome back to the show, and this is The Rock on Love 101 FM. If there's a topic that you'd like to discuss, or even a topic that may have the church on different sides of the fence, well, let us know. And if you have the spiritual passion, knowledge, and background, and would like to be a guest on the program, feel free to let us know so that we can get you on and to talk the things with you to make our country better, to bring information and knowledge, or to just have a discussion. Feel free to give me a call at 876-295-9141. That's my number. Or you can give Love a call. You can email transformjamaica@hotmail.com. So, post all your comments on this topic today, rituals, superstitions, and duppy stories, on our Facebook Live or YouTube live broadcast, or send us a WhatsApp to 876-997-3125. Well, let's bring in our special guest, Dr. Mina Blackwood Meeks, and of course, she is so enriched with the knowledge of our culture, our history, and our storytelling, and we look forward to hearing from her, and also our other special guests, Dr. Donald Stewart. Dr. Meeks, nice to have you back on again. I'm just so interested in hearing you talk to us. Just give us some of the Jamaican superstitions that you may know of and hear of, and some of the other things out there that just makes us Jamaican, the duppy stories. Just talking with people on the road today, people were just telling me how they pick up duppy on the road. You tell me your stories. Dr. Meeks?
I will follow up with what Donna said in that first segment about the context of the spiritual of that which we're talking about outside the only storytelling.
You're breaking up.
Question that was
okay, so I'm not hearing Dr.
and
Meeks.
See whether there are any lessons, any teachings, any anecdotes, any stories in the Bible about ghosts, because suspicious or fearful is when these concepts are transferred from the Bible into other contexts. And perhaps one of the most well-known, at least to me, references to ghosts in the Bible is when the disciples saw Jesus walking on water, and they were fearful that this was a ghost. This suggests to me that they had knowledge before or heard of one before, because they would not have that out of thin air. So that's just one reference which comes to my mind about ghosts in the Bible. And yet, believing, I said I saw upon with grave suspicion. What is she talking about? And what is she practicing? And then worse, if when I say duppy or ghost, I then light up a piece of incense. Let me tell you something, Reverend Steve. Every so often I do a one-woman show of story. And in one of my one-woman shows, I wanted to light incense. Person who didn't have anything to do with the production if I were going to light incense. And then I had to say, what are the first three gifts that Jesus received? And myrrh. But just because I want to do it in one of my stories, and I'm not in the church incensing body or incensing before prayer or whatever it is that we do with incense in the church, it becomes very suspicious. So one of the points to me is to text and to recognize perhaps how we have been trained, socialized, conditioned to accept suspicious of them outside of that context.
You know, that's a very interesting statement, because if you are part of the Orthodox Church and the historical church before the modern day, let's say the last 200 years of church, incense was a part of their worship. And so I guess because of our lack of having it in our everyday life, in most religions in Jamaica, it just seems as something different. So you see somebody with incense, you think something is up. Yes, Miss Meeks. Let me bring in Pastor Donald Stewart. Dr. Stewart, is it because we're not aware or knowledgeable of some of these things why we carry it to the place of superstition? Dr. Stewart?
Okay, I didn't hear the question again clearly, but I'm getting the flow.
Right.
And I want to just make a couple comments, and maybe that will help to answer the question. Again, everything must be put in proper perspective. And the matter of ghosts, the term ghost is used in the scripture, yes, as Dr. Meeks has said in that particular place. But we must understand that the words ghosts and spirits are used interchangeably. And so you see one, it could mean the other. There is a fact of demonic spirits, and there's also the spirits of dead people. Now, what has happened in our culture, and in many other cultures, is that we have played a lot on the spirits of dead people to say that these spirits can be manipulated and used for various purposes. And a lot of the duppy stories are built around that concept. Whereas with what the Bible teaches is that when a person dies, that spirit goes. And what will happen is that demonic spirits will actually impersonate the individual who has died. And this is where we get into many difficulties now. And this is where it becomes diabolic or satanic, because we are playing around with spirits, thinking that it's the spirits of our dead relatives or dead friends, when what we're playing around with are demonic spirits. And when we read Deuteronomy chapter 18 in the Bible, from verse 9 to verse 14, it gives us a good perspective, where God warns his people as they're about to enter the land of promise, the promised land. He warns them and he says, do not dabble, do not play around with anything in that whole area. And there are many things listed there, including what we call divination, including witchcraft, sorcery, and all those things that go together. So they are referred to generally as the occult world. And so when people are talking about duppy stories or these superstitious things which are done, whether it's to tie a red string on the baby or to put the baby over the grave, or the various things we do, the 9 nights and the 40th nights and so on. These are a part of a whole system, occult system, which the Bible warns us against. And so it's in that context that I'm approaching this stuff. It's serious.
I can imagine just listening to what you say, because a baby is born and we cut the umbilical tube and we plant it and a tree, and we talk about all the things that are going to happen. The things that we do, that we try to use to determine the future of something. that cannot be biblical because what we're doing is taking the source away from God, is it? Dr. Stewart, can you hear me?
Sorry, I'm trying to catch it. Just catching
Yeah.
one bits and pieces.
So the whole thing about our rituals, when we do things in order to impact a future event, like
Yes.
planting the umbilical cord or stepping over something, or
Yes.
just the different things. As a child of God, doing that kind of behavior, are we saying that it's not God who determines what happens, but we prefer to go ahead and do the ritual of what we see everybody else do?
Okay. The thing is that what we're dealing with there are rituals that are associated to what is called divination. And divination is a wide field, and it includes anything that we do where we try to get knowledge, whether of the past, the present, or the future, through any kind of spiritual activity that is not sanctioned or that is not permitted by God. And this is why that passage in Deuteronomy 18, verse 9 to 14, is so important for people to read, because it spells out some of these things. As you go through the scriptures, you will see some persons who got involved in some of that. King Saul, for example, and later on in the New Testament, you read about a man called Simon the sorcerer in Acts chapter 8. You also read about another man by Jesus, or Elmias, in Acts chapter 13. You read about a girl who had a spirit of divination, a demon of divination, in Acts chapter 16, verse 16 to 18. And then you'll see other things mentioned in Acts chapter 19, where Paul was in Ephesus. So these are practices which are coming from way back. And every culture has its own form of divination. And wizardry or witchery or sorcery or other names are given to them. And we as Jamaicans have inherited a lot from our African forefathers. And we need to examine to see what is good and what is bad based on the scripture.
I want to bring something in. As I did my research, Jamaican revivalism, a mixture of European, African religious traditions. The attitudes towards nature and spirituality are influenced by African religions and the style of worship. Unlike European Christianity, revivalists in Jamaica don't believe in a separation between this world and the spirit world, meaning spirits can affect the material world and by extension our lives. So Pastor, someone who's living, let me ask you very quickly, you've been in Africa for 5 years. Have you seen much of what we've been practicing here for the last 300-400 years over there? Dr. Stewart?
I'm just trying to catch that last part, the last part of the question you're asking.
Have you seen much while you've been there in Africa of what we've been doing here in Jamaica, our revivalism or Obia?
I lived for 2 years at Lake Tanganyika, which is at the northernmost part of Africa, of Zambia, and it connects with some of 3 other African countries. And in that area, witchcraft is the order of the day, basically, because it's a fishing area, and people use charms, what they call charms, to catch fish and all that kind of stuff.
Tell us about that.
Generally speaking, there is just a belief in spirits, the spirit world, and the spirit world influencing the natural world. And even those who go to church many times are still connected to these practices. It's just like what we have in Jamaica, but to a deeper degree.
See, we've carried so much of that over, and it says here a revivalist ritual involves lots of singing, drumming, chanting, dancing, clapping, all of these things. Now, naturally, why did they do it? To invite possession. It's something where on this side of the world, we don't think much about what our forefathers did and why they did it. The Maroons, though, still practice the drumming, still invoke the ancestors. And on the outside, we are still trying to do some of what they are doing and what other Africans have brought here over the years, not realizing, even as Christians, what that does to us. So you're there and you're seeing the charms and all of these things.
Well, the thing is that
go ahead.
What's happening is that we live in a world where there are spiritual forces at work. We have the God and His Holy Spirit who desires to work in us and works through us. But there are demonic spirits right across the globe, and they operate in different ways, different forms. And as Paul says in 2 Corinthians chapter 2:11, he says, we are not ignorant of Satan's devices. There are many different ways that Satan works. And demonic spirits are going to be attaching themselves to anything that is sinful or anything that promotes idolatry or anything that is promoting superstition, because superstition is really faith in the occult world. That's what it is. Because what God wants is for us to have faith in Him through Jesus Christ. But when we practice superstitious activities, we are now putting our faith in something else in the spirit world. And this is where the demons now have access into people's lives. And that's why it becomes extremely dangerous. Those of us who have been involved in the deliverance ministry, as I have been involved actively since 1986 in Jamaica. And I've done some here in Zambia as well. Those of us who have been involved, we know that there is a direct connection between these superstitious activities and practices, these rituals which we have inherited from our forefathers, whether it's Indian, African, Chinese, whatever. But we know that they have the connection with the spirit world, and doors are normally opened up for demonic spirits to enter. And this is why it's so dangerous.
And that's why the essence of rituals, though rituals may be things that we just do on a normal basis, that's why we have to be careful about rituals, because some of these rituals opens those doors. I have a question from Mr. Campbell or Ronald Campbell on Facebook. And this will lead to the next big question, because the question on the screen on Facebook is, what are we doing when we visit the Obeah, participate in Kumina, use questionable lotions and potions? I mean, even Christians are taking lotions. Somebody called me to their house to pray for them, and they had oil all over the place. It was oil of blessing, oil of running duppy, and I said, but you can't be asking God to step in here when you have oils that are not of God.
Steve, just say this, that I wish Dr. Blackwood Meeks was able to respond to this, but I'm going to make a statement. And if she could respond, if possible, that the word Kumina is a dance form from the African retention movement. But what does it mean? Kumina means literally to be possessed by the spirits of the ancestor. And so what you're getting into in Kumina is not just a traditional dance that you enjoy and have fun. It is a dance with a purpose. It is, and the drum beating and the movements have meaning, and they're a part of a ritual to draw spirits into a person's life. When people go to the Obeah and so on, for whatever reason, they have now opened the door for the spirits that are working through that Obeah to enter their lives and their families. You will see the connection between power, spiritual power, and demonic spirits when you read that story in Acts 16, verse 16 to 18. Here is a girl in the city where Paul is in the city, Philippi, and he's preaching and he's teaching. And the girl attaches herself to them and says, these are the men sent from the Most High God to show us the way unto salvation. The words sounded good, but eventually Paul realized that something was wrong. This girl had the ability to predict the future. She had the spirit of divination. And when Paul drove out that demon in Jesus' name, all of her powers left immediately. There is a connection there between these spiritual powers and demonic spirits.
Pastor Stewart,
it's a dangerous connection.
Pastor Stewart, I want to take that statement to another level, because people often look at the powers and make a hero or a giant out of the person who is using the power. So even somebody comes and does something prophetic or some form of divination, and people exalt them, not realizing that even Satan will try to copy the power of God to get the attention of people.
I missed that last part again.
What was that? Okay, we have a voice note in studio.
Good morning, Pastor Blair and morning to your guests. Very interesting topic, but I'm going to touch on the Duppy story later for today. Yeah. For me, I do not believe in Duppies, that Duppies are real. When I was a child, yeah, I believe in ghosts and I believe that Duppy was real. But I strongly believe that, Duppies are fallen angels who come in the form of your grandmother, your grandfather, your dead grandmother and father, impersonating them and wanting you to believe that is your dead mother come dreaming or whatever. Yes, that's what I believe. Yeah, that's my view. I'm not forcing anyone to believe what I believe, but Duppy thing, then things are not real. You have a blessed day.
All right. We're going to talk more about the Duppies. We're going to talk about Obeah. Every Jamaican talks about Obeah. I get calls every week. St. Mary, Portland, Westmoreland, Obeah, Obeah, Obeah. We're going to talk about that and more when we come back from this break.
Clear Sound Production Services in association with Kevin Downswell Ministries present 658 Fest. Thank you. With Kevin Downswell, Rhoda Isabella, Rondell Positive, Chosen, Petra K, and Ali McNabb. Tickets 3,000, VIP 6,000 at spuropen.com/658fest. Saturday, August 7, 3 to 7 p.m. Police Officers Club, 34 Hope Road. COVID protocols will be observed. An attitude of gratitude. 658 Fest. Thank you. JUTC available to downtown Spanish Town and Portmore after the show.
A Moment for Parents, brought to you by Parenting Jamaica, a program of the I Believe initiative.
I don't want easy job to be a parent, Somebody glad when me hear say Parenting Jamaica can tell you what to do. Me learn say parenting is about how you do it, and them have all of 4 different ways to grow up pitney. Them call it parenting styles. See if you can pick out your own. The first one is the authoritarian style, where you just set bare rules for the poor pitney them, and the pitney them have to behave proper all the time. Like when my granny used to say, pitney must be seen and not heard. Then you have the permissive style. Them the parents they do everything for the pitney them, and them give them anything them want. Then the third one is the neglectful style, where you don't spend enough time with the pitney them, so the pitney them get out of hand. But the fourth style is the right one. You give them enough love, but you still discipline and guide them. Them call it the authoritative style. And that is what all of us must try to do. So come make we do this thing right now. Make all of we be authoritative parents.
A Moment for Parents was brought to you by Parenting Jamaica, a program of the I Believe initiative.
Daddy, no!
What?
You threw a plastic bottle out of the car window? You know where that go end up?
Akeem, I hope you have bus fare.
Barry the barometer say Akeem is right. That battle go gully with the rain and cause mosquito 1 and mosquito 2. Then reach a sea with its other battle friend and kill off the reef with done under stress from climate change. Fish need the reef and we need the fish. So you pick up your plastic.
Smart and steady, get climate ready.
Visit PPCRJA on Facebook for more on climate change.
Clear Sound Production Services in association with Kevin Downswell Ministries present 658 Best Thank You with Kevin Downswell, Rhoda Isabella, Rondell Positive, Chosen, Petra K, and Ali McNabb. Tickets 3,000, VIP 6,000 at spuropen.com/658 Fest. Saturday, August 7, 3 to 7 p.m. Police Officers Club, 34 Hope Road. COVID protocols will be observed. An attitude of gratitude. 658 Fest. Thank you. JUTC available to downtown Spanish Town and Portmore after the show.
Welcome back. So many questions coming in on WhatsApp. I'll deal with the questions in just a minute, but I'm told we have Dr. Mina Blackwood Meeks back.
Yes, I'm with you. I'm with you by the good Lord reliable phone, and I'm so sorry I missed all that much of the discussion.
Well, I want to use you. I want to use your knowledge, and I want you to help us. Yes, because I want to talk about how much we've taken from Africa as a people, and how has it benefited or affected us with our culture.
All right. So there are a number of perspectives that we need to, or context that we need to put that in. And one of them is that very often what we recall of the African traditions is perhaps stronger than the Africans themselves now have of those traditions. None of us is free of the impact of colonization and slavery and imperialism and deculturation. But because we have been forced to call upon certain things for our survival, then there are aspects of I believe that what we have here is stronger. So that when Bob Marley says Africa awaits her creators, I believe that's part of what he's talking about. So that's one of the first points that I want to make. In terms of deculturation, then the second point I want to make is the way in which these negative responses to what have survived from Africa in our memory, in our DNA, in our experiences, have really served to reinforce class and race hierarchies. So, for example, many people might not know, might never have heard of a village, of a place in Kingston called Smith Village, but it was a marginalized West Kingston community that was the home to many adherents.
Okay, we're losing her again.
Pardon me?
Yeah.
Are you not hearing me
Dr.
now?
Meeks, we're losing you again.
But I don't know why, because I'm hearing you loud and clear.
Yes.
Hello?
We're hearing you, Amina. We're gonna check on that, but we're hearing you.
All right, because the host is not hearing me. So should I continue?
Yes, please.
I'm going to continue and say this must be a case of Obia. Obia or bad luck or goat mouth. Yes, about the interferences that prevent us from doing certain things. And I reference Smith's Village, which we now know as Brenham Town. But it was an area that was repeatedly raided by the police. because they went in to arrest the revivalist practitioners who were there in large numbers in that community. So what I want to look at is the social impact of that which we are calling superstitions and things that go against the state or go against Christianity. Let us not forget either that hello?
All right, give us a second, Amina, but loving the pun there. I'll be back with you in just a moment.
Okay.
Thank you. All right, so we have host and Dr. Amina. Are you both there?
Are you on the net?
Yes, I'm here. Dr. Mink?
Hello?
Hello?
I'm right here with you.
Yeah.
Yes, I apologize, ma'am. I wasn't hearing you. So they brought me onto the phone now also. But,
and so you didn't hear me say that this is either bad luck or what?
Oh boy. We're such a spirited people, and we've been, the point you made is something that came to me as I thought about the program today, that we tend to be, I've been to Africa, and when I got there, I said, gosh, this is Jamaica. But we tend to hold on to and to practice so much more of Africa maybe 300-400 years ago than some of the modern day Africans. Something I saw there shocked me when I went to church. There was so much dance in church. It makes our churches look slow. There was so much spirit and so much, just so much of everything. But in terms of what we've carried forward in terms of the culture and the dance, the Africans are amazed at us, and they too now are doing the dances our boys are doing and everything else. But the concern on this program is, as Doctor was mentioning earlier, Dr. Stewart, he was mentioning, for instance, Kumina, and he wanted to hear your perspective on something like Kumina, where the teaching is that we're trying to appease spirit. And it's just like with the 9 nights, we're trying to let the spirit realize that he's no longer welcome at the house. As Jamaicans, we've held on to so much of the spirit world with our Africanness.
But that is just one small part of the practice, and I don't want to speak on behalf of practitioners. What we do know is that Kumina is one of the most authentic forms of the traditions that remain in Jamaica, because the persons from that part of Africa arrived here last, and so they did not suffer to the extent that other traditions suffered, the European occupation or the attempt to ban or eradicate that which we brought with us. My concern, though, is the extent to which this is the suggestion that these practices are demonic serve to further marginalize poor Black people in this society. We know, for example, that Obia was not considered dangerous or dangerous enough to be banned until it was used in the 1760 rebellion that started in St. Mary with Taki. And by the way, that's not how we pronounce his name. We have learned that his name is Tachi. But for the sake of those persons who will not recognize it as Tachi, we will continue to say Taki, at least on this program. Yes, and so what we see is that the fear of this of the power of Black people to take charge of their own destiny has resulted in Obia being made illegal after that 1760 uprising. It's not just Obia, it's everything about us that is marginalized because it doesn't resemble what the Europeans want us to resemble. Storytelling is marginalized because who really believe in Anansi? You know, we don't believe in a spider that can talk, but we believe in a serpent that could talk. We believe that somebody could strike the rock and bring forth water, but we don't believe that Anansi could go into the forest and find a pot that went into a pretty little pot, the pot would have bubble up and bring food. So the marginalization to our what shorn by somebody who has the power or thinks they have the power to say, how dare you want to look black and represent blackness. So I put all of that in the same category as ways to make us more of others and less of ourselves.
Yes.
I wonder if I could make a comment there. Yes, I don't, the issue here is not about blackness. It's not about black, white, green, or yellow, because all human beings have the same kind of a heart. The heart is desperately wicked and sinful. We're born in sin, shaped by iniquity. And anywhere you go in the world, people will be in sin of some form or another. It just takes different shapes and sizes. Okay, so it's not about where you are or what color your skin is. Because we could talk about Indian rituals that are demonic because they are tapping into the spirit world that will eventually destroy people. We could talk about Chinese rituals that are demonic. We could talk about white European rituals that are connected to Freemasonry and other things that are also demonic. So it's not about
That's not what we're talking about this morning.
Right.
So we're
No,
talking
but
about
no.
African traditions that
I hear
remain
you.
in Jamaica, and
I
we're
hear
talking
you.
about why it is and who it is, and the sources from which the demonization of those traditions come. And so
Yes.
context is very, very important, because the Indians who came last, they can still go on TV and tell you to come to them house, and they will read you and prescribe this and that portions.
Precisely, you are correct.
Let the
And
revivalists go on the TV and do that.
no, you're correct in that these things can happen. But here's the problem with that.
Yeah.
The fact that it can happen or it can't happen is not what determines whether it's good or evil. There has to be a standard that we're using to evaluate a thing. It doesn't matter which background it comes from. We must be able to evaluate it against a standard to say, is this thing helpful? Is it something that is going to create further problems for individuals? And does it go against the word of God as we have understood it? That's what we're talking about.
And that's my point. I agree with you. And that's my point. That the standard is a European. Yes. Yes.
I'm trying to say to Dr. Stewart that I understand your perspective. And that is the simple perspective, Dr. Stewart. She's saying we have allowed the Indians to go on TV and say, come to Krishna for your reading, but we don't allow the Obia man to do the same, or we don't go into the depth of Kumina. And so where she is correct, because we are taking a stand against what we've brought over the last couple hundred years into Jamaica. We have opened the doors otherwise to others because we tend not to see what they're bringing to the table.
Yeah, but the problem is, the problem there, Steve, let me just interject, is that we should not now say that if we allow the Indians to do their hocus pocus on our television or radio, then we should allow everybody else to do it. What we need to do is to take a stand against hocus pocus from whatever country or whatever background it comes, and make a decision that as a people who say we are Christians, as a people who say we believe in the Bible, then whether it is the Indian or the African or whatever it is, we must say, here are the guidelines we're working with, and we will not allow our people to be manipulated by spirits in this way and by people who are being used as agents. That's the
There
point
are
I'm
many
making.
challenges. There are many challenges there because it's who the we should be in this out of many one. I am intrigued by your use of the term hocus pocus, because one of the things that we call hocus pocus is when somebody say, "I'm going to use oil of this or oil of that." And oil of many things are mentioned in the Bible, in Psalm 45, verses 7 to 8, or Proverbs 27, verse 9, or Isaiah 61, verse 3, or Hebrews 1, verse 9. We have all kinds of references to oil, as in the oil of joy and the oil. My father, by the way, was a revivalist who lived in the Bible, so I kind of know what I'm talking about. And that is how I could come to this so quickly, that we have all of these oil in the Bible, oil of joy, oil of gladness, and the Bible speaks of oils as oils that rejoice the heart. So my challenge is, how do we accept this in the Bible, but we don't accept it as part of our African identity tradition? And by the way, the challenge with that is that we Africans have the oldest Bible in the world, and the King James Bible of the version of the Bible that we were given attempted to expunge who we were and what we brought and how they found us with the first Bible in the churches of Lalibela. So when we talk about rituals and superstitions and dopey stories, we're into the arena of cultural reparation, and our spiritual beliefs represent part of that culture.
Very interesting.
Very interesting too. But
what do we do then, ma'am, when we talk about the spiritual belief? We talk about Obia, for instance, which is a mainstay in Jamaican life, even though it's still illegal, I believe. What do we do when people are calling me every single week from different parts of Jamaica? And the stories they give are very real in terms of things happening to them. Sisters telling me that their sister Obia them and the sister admits to it. A man calling me to tell me that his entire family has gone blind because the rest of the family don't want to have the land. And it just goes over and over and over, often between families, not even strangers. And so there's a belief in the power of Obia and the work of Obia. Whereas in the church, though, we people like Pastor myself will believe that those things do exist, but do not come from the power of God. And that's where he's bringing his perspective from.
I get that loud and clear.
Yes.
It's a belief, kill and belief cure. If we look at this COVID, for example, one of the things that we have not been told is that some of the vaccines are not vaccines at all, but are placebos. But people believe it because they want to see how the thing will work, and we know how experiments go, that there has to be a control group. And I was reading something recently about the effect of water on the body, because I drink water. If you're hungry, you're not sure, so you're hungry, you drink, and so on. So I have an interest in water. And one of the things that it said is that very often when we get a tablet to take from the doctor and it says take with water, it is perhaps that the water is working more than the tablet itself. But we believe it's the tablet, and we don't go to a place where, because we are 70% water, then we need water for our system to survive. So belief kill and belief cure. The second thing I want to say about the church is that you must grunt sometimes, so I know if you are hearing me. Are you hearing me? Are we still together?
I hear you loud and clear.
Yes.
I'm hearing you, and I have much to say.
Okay, wonderful. And so that who is the church? So often we use the Bible to be something that divides us. Some of us are Seventh-day Adventists. The day I came across Baptist Adventists, I nearly fall off my seat because I never know such a thing could exist. Some of us belong.
They were there before the Seventh-day Adventists.
Yeah, but I didn't know that. You see what I'm saying? I didn't know that. So I was very happy to know and to experience what they do. But there are some churches that would frown on the fact that some of us clap hand and use the tambourine. And so the church should do or should stand for. So there's a for tolerance and there is a call for openness. There is also a call for us to examine some of what we have accomplished and to ask ourselves, would we have accomplished that if we had continued with marginalizing what people believe? And I'm deliberately emphasizing that word because there is something we call indigenous knowledge systems, which in Zambia and South Africa is very current. What have I learned from what my environment has taught me? And the rest plenty things, but at the time when we should have benefited from it, because he was so marginalized and scorned, we tell the children, "Tika him, he was the black heart man." Look at where ganja has reached in terms of the rest of the world accepting that it has medicinal value. And thanks to Albert Lockhart and Manly West for their courage to step outside of that at that time and listen to the Rastaman who say when him smoke or however him use it, it would assist his vision at night. Most of the information about the use of certain plants, such as soursop to lower blood pressure, come out of a granny head, but we laugh at it. How did they interact with the herbs to know what would do what? And we won't spend the rest of the time listing the various herbs. Turmeric, that now doctors get on the air and say, look here, drink up your turmeric tea because of A, B, and C. So there is a way in which when we marginalize the information that we brought with us, and which some people still hold dear, we deny ourselves the opportunity from benefiting. And we keep asking people to leave themselves outside. Leave yourself outside of the classroom. Leave yourself outside of the corporate offices. Leave what you know and just come in here and perform some robotic tasks.
Are you saying that we need to open up ourselves then to the cultural aspects of what we have, the Kumina, the Obia, the revivalism, all of these things as Christians?
I'm saying let us look at it with different eyes. Let us step out of the condemnatory positions into which we have been socialized and which many of us have come to accept and say, what if? What if this business of oil at this and oil at that comes straight out of the Bible? And I just don't like when you do it because you don't do it inside of my church. What if? What if?
I wonder if I could make an input there.
Yes.
Because you see, if we're building a house and we have some wrong things in the foundation, then even if the house looks pretty and the roof is nicely put on, the house is going to crash sooner or later. And there are some fundamental things that have been said that are not correct. Now, I agree with Dr. Blackwood Meeks that there are some things which we have done wrong as a nation, as a people, in terms of not accepting some of our African heritage. My parents are from Africa. I am living in Africa now. I see Africa every day, okay? However, we must make a distinction between what is culturally good and what is culturally bad. We cannot accept everything in our culture as good, and because it's African, we must say yes. Every culture has bad and every culture has good in it, and we must be discerning. We must have some way of measuring or evaluating. Now, even the matter of what Dr. Blackwood Meeks said about, she said earlier on something about which part of it was truth, but not the whole truth. She was talking about how we need the belief and the kill and the belief cure thing. Now, it is true that belief or faith can affect the results of things. But If I had a bottle that looked like water, and that bottle was potassium cyanide in it, which is a deadly poison, and you never knew what it was, you believed that it was nice, refreshing water, and you drank it, it would kill you. It has nothing to do with your belief in that case, because there is danger in the thing itself. And this is the point I'm trying to make, that there are some things within our culture that are dangerous in themselves. And when we go to the Bible and we start to pick things out of the Bible, like saying oils are mentioned in the Bible, so oils must be good, that's dangerous, because we all know that we read something in its context. And we must look to see what the oil mentioned there is for, what it's about, when was it intended to be used, for what purpose, what does it represent, and all of that. And if you read the Old Testament and you read the New Testament, you see big differences in terms of the use of oil, for example. So the thing needs to be read within a context.
I agree with you, but I never said
And that's something.
That because it's in the Bible, it must be good. And I do agree with you that many things about our culture need to be interrogated. The way we treat women, for example. And did we get that out of the Bible? Many things about our culture need to be interrogated. We need to interrogate how we say that God made us in his image, but I don't go to church unless I have on my nice long false hair, I'm a false fingernail, and nobody says to me that is dangerous, that is not beneficial to me or the culture in which I live. But if I go with my nice straightening hair, I'm a false finger, I'm a false fingernail, but I say I'm going to get some oil of joy, I am going to be read out of the church, not for how I am trying to do better than God at creating me in what I think ought to be his image and likeness, but because me say, me want some oil of gladness. And so I am saying that part of what we need to do is to examine inside how deep the cultural dissonance is, and to be open that we don't know it all.
Very good point. And that's why, if we don't know it all, we need to look now to see where can we get accurate information, not just about culture, but also about morality and about spirituality that pleases God. There must be some source where we can go to that can give us guidance. And that guidance can't come from the culture, because every culture has its own different ways of doing things. So the culture can be your sole area of guidance. It can be your source of guidance. That's why the Bible is so important. That's why it's given to us for proper teaching and so on.
Reverend Steve should have a discussion about the relationship between culture and spirituality and culture and religion, which is really not what we're talking about this morning. But if the church is going to set these standards of morality and so on, then the church has to be unified. And the church is not unified. And then when the church is unified, the church is going to have to decide on what it does with those people whose spirituality is not located in the Bible, but is located in other scriptures and other holy books. Otherwise, we're bullying people on the assumption that we are the majority. And the late Professor Barry Evans did a study. I wish I could quote the exact name of the study now, but it is perhaps available online, about revivalism, in which one of his conclusions was that there are more revivalists in Jamaica than there are Christians, whatever those two terms mean. And I need to finish this point, please, because I find it very instructive for me. And that because so much of who we brought with us was subverted and an attempt to eradicate, we go to church because we don't want to go to prison. But when I leave church on a Sunday morning and I pay my tithes or whatever it is called, and I go home and there is something wrong with my child, I'm going to reach for the assafoetida. And are going to know which psalm to open and put at the child's head. And it's not that I'm not using the Bible. It's that I am conforming to a particular way of using the Bible, because if I use the Bible in my way, I'm going to go to prison, and I don't want to go to prison. And that was one of his conclusions. And so when I say that the church needs to decide what it believes, who it is preaching to, because even when it believes the same thing, you could go to a congregation on a Sunday morning and you are preaching a wonderful gospel that is hurting members of the congregation. If, for example, we're talking about how much we give and should give, but we are not paying attention to the minimum wage earner who has not earned in the last 18 months, how helpful can that be? And that's why I am so concerned about the social and spiritual, not religious, the social and spiritual impact on the individual, on huge communities of that which we are discussing. Because in the end, we are yes.
Yeah, let me mention, you touched on something there that I am passionate about, because if we're going to say we're concerned about the person who is earning a minimum wage, and we should not teach them to give, then I'm neglecting what the Word of God is saying to them, which is why many years ago I decided to teach the Word, not just to preach it. And yesterday I preached, I taught from the Word of God on giving, because it does say in Proverbs 11:24, one gives freely, yet grows all the richer, another withholds what he should give and only suffers. So at the end of the day, there is power in giving, but I'm not talking about giving to make me faster, they're richer. I'm talking about giving so that somebody can experience the benefits of giving. But let's get back to the topic. Ladies and gentlemen, we'll be right back after this break. We will have some voice notes from WhatsApp, and you can call in. I do want to hear from our special guest further on the topic, because there is much to talk about. And I believe that we still have to touch on even Obeah, because so many people in the church are visiting the Obeah man, and one person says, well, it may be some part of our culture that we should not turn our backs on, and another says it's opening the door to spiritism. We have about 25 minutes to talk about this and to hear from you. We'll be right back.
Clear Sound Production Services, in association with Kevin Downswell Ministries, present 658 Fest. Thank you. With Kevin Downswell, Rhoda Isabella, Rondell Positive, Chosen, Petra K, and Ali McNabb. Tickets $3,000, VIP $6,000 at SpurOpen.com/658Fest. Saturday, August 7, 3 to 7 p.m. Police Officers Club, 34 Hope Road. COVID protocols will be observed. An attitude of gratitude. 658 Fest. Thank you. JUTC available to downtown Spanish Town and Portmore after the show.
I've got love in my heart and I'm feeling.
St. James is your week in our Island Summer campaigns of this Tuesday. Inside Testimony Tuesday, live 1 to 5, August 3. Stick around for island flavored music and inspirational stories. 2 o'clock, John's for Prayer Blast. At 2:15, Inside the Evidence, we hear a series of testimonies from Marsha Ingram. From abuse and suicidal tendencies to battling numerous health conditions, now healed and restored. Then at 3 p.m., we go beyond the pulpit of Pastor Bernard Salmon, Dean of City Bible College, Assistant National Overseer, and Pastor of the Ramble Pond Apostolic Church in St. James. All this and more will come alive on the family station, Love 101.
Good morning, Pastor. I'm just listening to your program and I listen to these foolish people. I don't believe in Obeah. I don't believe in superstitious. I believe in God. So all this lady that came in and talking about family do this and family do that. What are they putting in bottles, giving people to rub on their skin and doing evil and wicked things? She cannot compare the oil in the Bible to what they're making this nastiness and putting into bottles, giving to people to do evilous things to themselves and to others. They need to use their money and buy food, good food and eat.
Are there more voice notes?
No, that's it for now.
Well, welcome back.
The Rock. Good morning.
Sorry, this one.
Good morning.
There's a question that I want to ask. If someone is offering you a job, but from the outset, they make it known to you that they communicate with spirits, how can it affect your life if you accept that job from that person? That's what I would want to know. This is Sharon. Thank you.
I never got to hear all of the question, but is she saying if the person offers her a job, but they are communicating with spirit world, she should take that job? Is that what she said, Nadine?
Yes, if someone offers a job and they tell you that they communicate with spirits, should that person still take the job?
Oh, well, let's throw that one a doctor as our special guest. Did you hear the question, sir? I'm not sure if you can hear me. Okay.
He was muted. Go ahead, Reverend Stewart.
Yes. The fact is this, that the Bible, which is what I live by, that's what gives me guidance. The Bible tells me that we must be careful what we yoke ourselves together with. 2 Corinthians chapter 6, verse 14 to 17 talks about don't be unequally yoked. We also know from 1 Corinthians 15, 33 tells us about that bad company corrupts good morals or good character. There is something about who you get close to in an ongoing basis. So you have to be very careful about where you work, who you work with, and who you connect yourself with. Now, when you're dealing with spiritual issues like this, and people say they're already practicing occult involvement of whatever kind, and you are going to be, you are placing yourself in a very dangerous position. You can become vulnerable to the things that they are doing, and we have seen a lot of examples of that kind of thing right there in Jamaica. Many people have come to me and to other members of the church for deliverance from demonic spirits because of that kind of involvement, association with the wrong people, and ending up being affected. So it's a real issue.
You can use this to follow on now to your comment brought by Dr. Amina Blackwood Meeks, because whereas the request for tolerance is something that is being presented to the church and has been presented, especially the last 10 years, there is, from experience, whether myself or yourself would be able to say that, when I'm dealing with demonic activity, when I'm dealing with a person, I will ask them questions as to what doors may be open or what things may have been done or where they may have been, and they'll give answers to show the doors that they've been open. Can you address that, Dr. Stewart?
Yeah, that's true. That sometimes they can, and sometimes God can even show you. And then when you ask them, they will say, "Oh yes, I didn't remember that I went to a night and participated in this or that." Or they say, "Oh yes, I remember when my mother or my grandmother had taken me to this place and they gave me a bath and they gave me something to wear or so." These are things that we have constantly encountered in deliverance ministry. So when we speak like this, it's not just a fable, it's not a made-up story. These are real lives, real people who have been affected because of some cases ignorance, and in other cases, the people have deliberately gone into these kinds of practices to gain power and to gain wealth. So it's a very dangerous operation, and people can be caught and trapped and destroyed.
Did you want to say more in response to what you heard in the last 15 minutes? I know you wanted to say something before I went to the break.
There was just so much because Dr. Blackwood Meeks went into too many areas and was saying things, mixture of truth and some things which are not true. And so it made it difficult now to pinpoint. But just to say, though, that we have to be very careful, not because a thing works or a thing is helpful or a thing might appear good or many people are doing it. None of those reasons of themselves makes that thing a good thing. And so we have to have some standard, some way of evaluating if a thing is good, not just because many people do it or because they did it from 1950s or from 1820s. We have to have a standard. And the standard we have been given from the God who made this heaven and this earth is the Bible. Whichever version you use, they may be a little different, but there's a basic truth that comes through in the Bible concerning these matters. That's the point I want to make.
Okay. I'm not sure if there are any messages on Facebook or WhatsApp because the internet where I am is down, so I'm using my phone. But if Nadine or the producer is able to bring forward any of those messages, I can't see anything. Especially on Facebook, I know that there are answers coming forward.
There's a message on Facebook. Vernal says, if someone send a picture from Jamaica to someone, if someone sends a picture from Jamaica to someone in Africa, can that person voodoo that person's picture, and can it affect that person even though they are so many miles away?
I could make a comment on that if you want.
Yes.
The fact is, when you're dealing with the spirit world, there are no such thing as boundaries in terms of distance. Because with the spirit world, it's not like the natural world. So whether you're in Jamaica or you're in Africa or some other place, just like how you can pray and it affects somebody in that place, in the same way, the demonic activity can operate across long distance. There are no barriers there.
All right, so that's one question. There's another voice note.
Pastor Steve, good morning. Yeah, we have to come to the reality and understand that there are many demonic forces upon this earth. Many thousands of people are possessed with demons because of what they join and who they wrap themselves with. So we have to stop pretending that we do not know that there are many demonic things in this world. The things that you gravitate to, the drinking of rum and all these things, then the devil take part in your life. So we got to understand it. Okay, sir?
Good morning, Auntie Nadine. I am just so thankful to God for the program The Rock, for Pastors Harris Steve Blair, and the topics that the Holy Spirit has inspired him to bring up, and the people that God has provided to guide us in Jamaica. Thank God for the exposure this morning. And the standard, the explanations, because really we know that, the Lord is against such communication with spirits, are, against it, Isaiah tells us. And so many examples of Manasseh, Jezebel, Saul, and all those people in the Bible. That is our standard. Okay? God bless you, Rock leader.
All right.
and personnel.
Okay, that's a thank you. I have another voice note and I have a one to read.
You see, when people mind are dirty, let me tell you, things happen to them and people will just take their money from them and laugh after them. I can remember growing up as a child, and this lady, let me tell you something, man. Everything that happen, if she get up and she see anything in front of her house, she say somebody trying to do her something, and that woman is as poor. She poor till she can't pour no more, and she would go and get money from anywhere to go to Point Taylor, because that's the place they used to go. And I can remember a man said, I never know if it was she or what, but the man was just talking and say the person believe in a hobby so much that what they used to do is take ice and throw up on them house top, and they'll get up and say a hobby man, because when they look them not see no nothing because the ice melt out, but they'll conceive in their heart that is dopey upon the house top. So that's why people have to know what they're saying and doing. You hear? Believe in God, trust in God. Pray for healing and deliverance from anything that you're going through. There's so much healing in the word of God. Just go on your knee and ask and stop believing in these dirty things that God can.
All right. One person says, only if you believe. Question, whether or not you believe, does the power still work? Quote unquote, power still work?
Just a simple principle here. Let's go to the natural. The scientists will tell us that if you allow something to fall freely in the air, it falls at a rate of 9.81 meters per second squared. It's called acceleration due to gravity. Anywhere in the world you go, you drop something, it falls at 9.81 meters per second squared. Now, you might not believe that, and somebody else might not believe it, but it doesn't stop it from being the truth. There are some principles in life that are true and that will happen whether we believe them or we don't believe them. And this is why it is so dangerous when we say belief kill and belief cure, and if you don't believe it, it can't affect you. That's not true. A lot of things we don't believe are still affecting us. Many people believe they couldn't die from COVID-19, and right now their bodies are in a casket somewhere under the ground. They didn't believe, but they're dead. So catch that principle.
Someone says, I grew up in a situation I was totally against it as a child. I'm now grown and baptized, serving God, and I tell my family they're wasting their money and could be very rich by now. They were always mad at me, even now. All right.
Dr. Stewart and Dr. Amina Blackwood Meek. Let me go to Dr. Meek first. Dr. Meek, I appreciate what you are saying. Yes, I'm a pastor. The fact is, if I can give some direction to what you are saying, I think oftentimes as a church we are accused of imposing on the outside of the church, which as a church we have to preach to the outside. But as a pastor, my concern naturally is, to me, there is something wrong with witchcraft, with obia, and with anything that interacts with spiritism that is not of God. Now, the thing about it is, I've been back in Jamaica 13 years, and one of the biggest things that I encounter is Christians talking to me about obia. And for so many of them, the whole thing is somebody trying to obia me, somebody trying to stop me. So there is a belief in our system, in our culture, in our people, in the power, benefits, and understanding of obia, voodoo, and witchcraft. And can we say that there's any good to any of this?
You're asking me whether we can say there's any good to any of it?
Yes.
I don't know whether I can say that. I know I can say, let us respect what people have experienced and what they tell us that their experiences have taught them. Reverend Stewart is right. You might not believe the things that I believe, but the fact that you don't believe what I believe don't make what I believe in wrong or untrue. We just believe two different things. The business of imposition is very important. The business of who sets the standards. We could argue that if we're going to set the standards from a biblical perspective, then we're setting the standards from 2,000 years of written history and what happens before all of that. And what of the lived experience before all of that is reflected in the Bible. I'm a storyteller. That's what I am. That's what I know. That's what I do. And so when I say to people, you realize that many of the parables told by Jesus Christ were first told by Aesop, who lived 600 years before Christ was born. They accuse me of being blasphemous because the way we have been trained, nothing ever happened until the Bible was written. So the fact that somebody doesn't believe it or it's not part of their experience doesn't make it wrong. When you talk about imposing from without, I think sometimes it is possible that the church also imposes from within. We don't know how many people sit down in a church and they listen to what pastor have to say. And they feel that way. But there is a level of peer pressure or a level of wanting to belong, I am suggesting, which prohibits or inhibits them from saying, say, that way. And I believe those are those additional elements that we need to bring to the conversation. I'm also standing up myself because I want to just throw my storytelling out the window. Are we discussing rituals, traditions, and what? Is storytelling a part of it? Yes.
Don't be story part.
And when you put storytelling in that mix now, then I have to say, like Ben Okri of Nigeria, people are as sick or as healthy as the stories they tell themselves. So if we believe we're powerless, if we believe that the fact that I wear my hair or I wear my hair is an indication that my heart is in a dark place, if we believe that I can't reconstruct this country to be just, if we believe shine and the rest of us can't reach that, if we believe that only 66 people who sit in parliament can speak on behalf of the rest of us, then we could go on. But we're only as sick or as healthy as the stories we tell ourselves. The challenge is, what stories can we agree that we want to tell ourselves? And how do we come to that agreement?
That's a good statement because I want to ask that question. I want to ask the question: what stories do we want to tell ourselves, especially when our children and those that are coming up now in this society, without the element of school and teachers and churches, for instance, they're being led into other stories online. And the whole thought of drawing that line that you've been asking us to even think about in terms of where do I go to see right and wrong? Where do I go to have that understanding of this story? The story that says the woman is to be my slave. The story that says otherwise. That's a very important question.
Could I comment on that, please?
Yes.
You see, again, the doctor is confusing the whole with the parts. We're not saying that storytelling is bad. Storytelling is very helpful and meaningful. I love stories, and I know stories are valuable. Jesus told stories, and they call them parables, okay? What we're saying is that within the context of storytelling, we have to look to see what is it we're telling the people and what is it doing to people. For example, when I was growing up, there were three kinds of stories that I heard a lot: Duppy stories, Big Boy stories, and Anansi stories. And as I grew and I started to observe what happens in our society, I see the witchcraft and the occult. I see the sexual immorality and perversion. And I see the con man and the Anansiism. And there is a direct linkage between those kinds of stories and what we're producing in our society. No, the doctor might not agree, but it's something, some homework I want to give her to go and do. You look and see what we're producing and see if our stories that we tell our little children growing up might not have something to do with it. And
you know that
I want to put it,
with you.
I want to put it to us.
When we see our children bleaching, we do not connect that so readily to the fact that all the heroes in the fairy tales don't look like them. When we see our children, our young children are sexualized, we don't relate that to the story of Rapunzel, who when her parents gone to bed, she let down her long hair and the boyfriend climbed up through the window. And so if we're going to be looking at what stories do to our minds and our understanding of what we can do, then we have to say to ourselves, how is it that we never put these on the European stories, but we put them on the Anansi stories? And then we also have to ask ourselves, whose understanding of Anansi is it that we are playing out? There are other kinds of stories besides the big boy story and the other categories of stories that you mentioned. We haven't talked about stories from the Bible. We haven't talked about family stories. We haven't talked about any of those stories. And I was not confusing the parts with the whole. I was simply saying that there is something called subliminal learning or subliminal association. And when we put storytelling in the same category as rituals and superstitions, with the loading of the negativity that we have put on those words, then what is it that we are transmitting at a subconscious level to our people about that very important part of who we are and what has caused us to survive or helped us to survive? That's the point I was
We are
making.
not putting stories in the category. What we're doing is talking about Duppy stories, which is one aspect of storytelling. One aspect. And we're saying Duppy stories are conveying to people superstitious belief systems that are tied to divination, to witchcraft, and to other occult activities that open people to demonic possession or demonization. That's what
I
we're saying.
understand your position. I understand your position.
Well, doctor, our
Yes.
time is up. Very interesting
Oh,
program, Dr.
no.
Miller, back with me. Thank you for your
I was enjoying talking with the lady.
Dr. Stewart, thank you for your time. Nadine, our producer Kathy, thank you for your work. For all the listeners, yes, this is The Rock. Certainly opening up discussions to make us think about what we believe. Once again, so many call me about all the stories and all the witchcraft and all the obia and all the fears. I've got one to leave with you. A Jamaican thing that we say, Jah Rastafari, doesn't come out of my mouth except when I'm teaching about it. Jah being God, Rast, the noble title of Ethiopia, Tafari is Selassie first name, and Jamaicans walk around every day saying Tafari Makonnen is God. Please, those are my words to you. Think about what you do. Think about what you say. Think about what comes into your life. Think about what doors you open, especially if you're serving God. Have a great day. This is The Rock. I'm Steve Blair.
Thank you so much for making it Love 101 FM and for being a part of our givings this morning inside The Rock. Time and love, it is just about a minute after 12. It's now time for midday prayer and meditation.